Yo, what's up, everyone? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I'm just glad that you're with me today. So, hey, can you really foster productivity, creativity, and happiness through science? Heck yeah. Today, I am super duper excited to talk with Scott Crabtree. Scott is the founder of Happy Brain Science. He's got a new book out, All Work and Some Play. All right, some play. That's good. But Scott is going to talk to us today about applying science to thrive at work. He's got a degree in cognitive science, whatever that means, from Vassar College. And then he's got a ton of clients that are really cool. Ones you've probably heard of: DreamWorks, Nike, Kaiser Permanente, Boeing, Intel, Hewlett Packard, Activision, Blizzard Entertainment, and NBC, and loves to use his game development background to gamify his keynotes and his workshop. He's got a serious, successful card game called Choose Happiness at Work. And he is going to teach us how to be happier, how to have more fun, how to play, and how to do it and actually have some fun. So I'm for that. What's up, Scott? How are you?
Hey, Phil, I'm great, and I'm super excited to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, man. I'm super excited that you're here. So we were talking before we started here that you're also a pinball lover. So what's your favorite game and how long you been playing?
Oh boy, I've played a large variety of pinball games. I am sorry to be so cliche, but I am also a Star Wars nerd. So Star Wars and pinball together in one is pretty much my dream scenario. But you name it, like if if it's got balls, I'm going to want to play it, so to speak. Uh, so I enjoy pretty much any game, any pinball. What's your favorite?
Well, so I love the new Star Wars game. The old one's okay, but the way that they redid the new one with the Death Star in the middle is fan freaking tastic. I love that. They have they have the non-coin op game for just $5,000. I really like that. So I'd love to get that. That's fun, but I'm going to tell you, my classic is one that I play with my brother. He actually has two of my favorite games. The one that's in Seattle that I was mentioning. He's got F-14 Tomcat and Millionaire.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, wonderful multi-ball games. Yeah, love F-14 Tomcat.
Multi-ball, yes.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. You gotta love the multi-ball. Heck yeah. So how'd you get started playing, man?
I was a sad, awkward teenage child, and I happened to go to a fancy pants boarding school where my dad was a teacher as a day student. But because it was a fancy pants boarding school, there were pinball machines around, and so I got to play pinball and pool in the dorm that we were the faculty staff for, and that was really my introduction to games. Was board games around the house, and then early video games, pinball, pool, etc. Fun stuff.
Awesome. So do you play pool still? You a pool shark?
I am not very good, but I still play occasionally when I can get out to a bar or my brother's basement, who has a pool table. So
awesome. Yeah, I got pinball from my mom. I got pool from my dad, though. Mom plays pool as well. Mom's a lefty, so I never could follow her shooting pool, but Mom taught me a lot about pinball. She attended bar at Jackamet's Middle Inlet Inn and played pinball. She would 10 bar, and I'd get to play a ball when she'd have to go serve a customer. So.
Nice.
Yep.
Family cooperation. That's cool.
Absolutely, man. So board games, though. So let's talk about that, and let's migrate that into the conversation here about some play, which I think is fun. But so board games, are you still playing some classics? I mean, now that we're home safely, in home, kind of quarantined in, are you playing any board games?
Absolutely. So I think everyone understands at a time like this a lack of a perfectly polished professional background. But the upside of that is that over this shoulder is, in fact, our game closet. So if you'll pardon the awkward pointing, there's all kinds of games in that closet, from classics like Catan and Ticket to Ride, to some newer games that have been a lot of fun. I actually discovered a fair number of games in the process of writing this book, All Work and Some Play, Future-Proof Your Career Through Games, where we're looking for various games that taught various human skills at work. So we've discovered some fantastic games, including online games such as Fibbage 3. We've been playing with colleagues over Zoom, and then board and card games like Wavelength, for example, is one of my new favorites. Just One. It's an award-winning game that's super fun and cooperative for people to play. So those are just a few samples of obviously lots and lots of games we could talk about, but love the games, love what they do for us.
Yeah, cool. So games really can help us though at work. I think that's really interesting. I don't know. You got to talk to me about this guy.
You're very polite, Phil. I think what I read between inside your brain was, isn't that a bit of a stretch, dude?
Yeah, come on, man.
It is a little bit of a stretch for some people, and what some people recognize is that games are a fantastic place to learn. Why are games a fantastic place to learn? Because games give us a magic circle. Now, I know I sound a bit like a freak when I say magic circle, but one person's magic circle is another person's psychological safety. So, what is psychological safety? What's a magic circle? Let's take psychological safety. Comes out of academic research. Everything I do is grounded in solid peer-reviewed science. But it also comes out of Google. Google's somewhat famous Project Aristotle looked at what makes a team thrive at Google. And Google has lots of smart PhDs on staff doing research, etc. So they're looking at all the data in a very scientific way, and they're looking for what is it that makes teams thrive. It must be an age mix. It must be an experience mix. It must be different disciplines coming together. Maybe it's the way they're seated, and none of this was resulting in much difference for them. And then they finally looked at psychological safety, and psychological safety proved to be the strongest factor in team success at Google. So what is psychological safety? It is a shared feeling of trust that you can be yourself and within reasonable limits, such as not being a sexist a-hole, for example. Within reasonable limits, you can say or do pretty much anything at work and you're going to be okay. You're going to be respected. We don't have to love each other. We don't all even have to like each other at work, but we have to be okay with each other. We have to respect each other, take good care of each other, and not backstab, talk behind people's backs, etc. The research suggests if people feel that psychological safety, they're willing to speak up more. They're willing to say, is that the right dosage of medicine? Because it reads as double that to me. Or are we sure this is the time to launch this website? Because I don't think QA has had a chance to check on this. People speak up more freely. They add their ideas. Decision-making research summarized by the Heath brothers, who, for those who don't know, the Heath brothers are both professors. They write great research-based books. And their book, Decisive, they say we make better decisions when we consider more options. Well, we consider more options when a diverse set of people working together all speak up with their opinions. That happens when people feel psychological safety. So back to games. When it's just a game, whether it's my card game, Choose Happiness at Work, one of these games behind me in my closet, or a video game perhaps that you're playing with colleagues, because it's just a game, we lighten up. Right? I'm not going to take a big risk in a formal meeting, but I might take a big risk with my colleagues in Settlers of Catan or Password or Charades. And taking that risk enables learning. I can and probably will say a lot more, but as you know, Phil, I basically talk for a living, so I want to pause here and see if you have questions or comments before I go on.
That's awesome. No, that's really fun. So that makes so much sense, though. I mean, I think back, talking with my dad. Now, my dad is certainly not the most communicative guy. He's a classic guy, right? He doesn't always talk about his feelings, and certainly not always very open. But I know that the best conversations that I ever got to have with him were over the game of pool, because Dad felt very comfortable talking over the game of pool.
That is exactly the point, Phil. If you get people feeling comfortable and safe, that is a prerequisite to learning, right? Imagine you or I giving a presentation, a keynote, a workshop, and starting off with, listen up, you a-holes, you're going to really screw this up if you don't learn this right. I mean, brains would just be shutting off everywhere, right? Like, I'm out of here, right? So to get people to learn, they got to feel safe. And what helps people feel safe? A safe container, a pool table, a set of rules for a game, etc. And then what we looked at is artificial intelligence is advancing significantly, right? So you said, referred to my cognitive science degree as whatever that is, or whatever you said. Yeah, at the time when I was going to college in the 80s, my cognitive science degree was a multidisciplinary study of the mind and thinking using lots of things, including artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence at the time in the 80s was quite primitive. And now anyone making a trip through an airport, for as one example of many, is interacting with artificial intelligence multiple times. So AI is here and it is already taking over some human jobs, and it will continue to take over some human jobs. So what do we do as human beings? The research suggests, futurist experts suggest, we learn to do better the things that humans can do better than AIs and computers. So what do humans do better than AI and computers? Well, they're often referred to as the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Those 4 C's are harder for AI to replace. And those 4 C's are things that can be learned playing games together. You've got to communicate, you've got to be creative, you've got to bring critical thinking, etc., to play a game well. And so games give us a safe place to play with colleagues, take risks, and learn things we just wouldn't learn in a typical regular meeting.
Wow. So that cognitive brain science stuff that I jokingly referred to as whatever is actually really helping us at work in ways that we didn't even expect, which I think is, of course, super cool, because that is why playing at work in a structured way helps us get more done. Is that right?
Exactly. So in a way, Phil, it comes back to growth mindset. For those listeners, watchers of yours who don't know this research led by Carol Dweck out of Stanford, she divides the world into 2 different mindsets. A fixed mindset is, I'm going to prove to you how smart I am. People are basically born the way they're born. I'm really talented. I'm going to prove it to you. Growth mindset is, you can continue to learn and grow throughout your lifetime, including things that some people think are unchangeable, such as intelligence, even personality to a degree. So Carol Dweck's research suggests that a growth mindset is incredibly useful. In particular, it's more resilient to setbacks. So why do we need a growth mindset? In part because the world is changing so much all the time. We have to learn and grow and change along with it. So if you agree that it's important to learn and grow, that it's important to sharpen the saw, as Stephen Covey put it in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you're committed to learning, then the question is simply, what's the best way to learn? And my co-author, Kristen Toohill, and I should not leave her out of this. Kristen Toohill is my co-author. We argue that if you're going to learn, playing games with each other at work is a great way to learn. Better than a lot of the other ways we typically go about learning. For a lot of people, you read a book, or dare I say it to a speaker friend like you, even if you attend a keynote or a workshop, depending on how it's run, people are going to forget a bunch of that in 6 months. But if you give them an experience that nurtures human action, human interaction, human creativity, etc., then you're setting yourself up to learn and grow and sharpen the saw at the same time. My whole career is founded on the fact that science can tell us ways to get good stuff from our brains, and choosing more happiness is a really good way, according to solid peer-reviewed studies, to get better results from your brain. So playing games together is a way of building happiness, building relationships, so your prime brain real estate comes online at work, and learning uniquely human skills at the same time.
Hold on. So choosing happiness and playing games. Hold on, Scott. Back this up. So choosing happiness first. What? How does that help, man? I'm now you've lost me here. You got to help me understand.
Sorry, Phil. I get excited and I start connecting a lot of ideas at once.
I love it. I love it. I just need to be filled in.
I should slow down. So My work in 2 words is choose happiness. Why? Because solid research done by scientists far smarter than I has found in study after study after study that there are choices we can make to boost happiness or not in our lives. So quickly, let me define happiness, because for a lot of us that word is great, and for some of us that word is like, happiness, who cares about happiness? I'm looking for joy or authenticity or meaning or whatever. So scientists don't like the word happiness because it's a little fuzzy for them. So they use subjective well-being. Subjective well-being gets at a couple of things. We're talking about positive emotions that are great, but short-lived. We're also talking about a longer lasting sense of meaning and satisfaction with life. I'm a good person. I am Phil Gerbicek. I help them understand how to do better sales, better social media. I have meaningful impact on the world. That kind of satisfaction is part of happiness as well. So if we define happiness that way, then scientists have found, first of all, this is not about being blissed out all the time, right? I mean, we're in the middle of a huge world crisis. It's not a happy time for a lot of people, and it's okay not to be happy all the time. This is not like, ooh, let's just all be blissed out all the time. That's unrealistic and unhelpful. But in any day, work day or otherwise, there are choices you can make, right? Some of those choices are going to result in more happiness. If you choose those things that result in more happiness, generally speaking, your brain will work better. It's not always advantageous to be in a good mood. You're more gullible in a good mood. So if you might be getting scammed by somebody, it might be good to not be in a great mood. But for most of the work we do most of the time, happier brains do better work. We are more creative, we're more productive, we're more resilient, we're healthier, immune system gets boosted, happier people show up at work more often, in the emergency room less often. They live longer. All kinds of benefits come with happiness. So science says there are real choices we can make to choose more happiness. And if we do, we enjoy a lot of benefits, including fundamentally our brain working better. Let me pause there. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, I love that. I always want my brain to work better.
Yeah.
So the fact that I choose happiness, I'm starting my day with a gratitude. I commit to 3 things every day that I'm grateful for,
Beautiful.
and that absolutely gets me going. I've been doing that like the last 9 months or so, and I can tell you it's completely changed my brain. And now you're telling me
Yes.
scientifically that's actually smart, right?
Absolutely.
Woohoo! So
Again,
accidentally smart. I love it.
now you're doing it just right, Phil. Gratitude is among the easiest things that we have to turn to boost our well-being. And I know there are some times when it feels like there's not a lot to be grateful for. And again, look, however anyone's feeling is totally fine. But if you can find it in yourself to be grateful, you will be happier. And because you're happier, your brain will work better. To oversimplify slightly for the sake of quick explanation of the whole system, if we are fearful, our brain figuratively shrinks. If we go towards fight or flight, which is not a switch, it's a continuum, right? You can be a little guarded or full on panic, but to whatever degree you are toward fight or flight, your limbic system, the middle of your brain, and your brainstem, responsible for very primitive functions, together those parts of your brains look like the brain of your average mammal, your average house cat, horse, dog, whatever. That's what other mammals' brains look like. If we're in fight or flight, we go to that primitive brain and it sees only 3 solutions to problems: fight, flight, or freeze. You hear about freeze less because it doesn't rhyme, but those are great ways of surviving a mountain lion on a hike, but they're not a great way to figure out how to engage Kevin in HR down the hall, or to get Jose to commit to your coaching package the way you want him to. So when we're dealing with non-simple challenges, we don't want 3 and only 3 options. We want all the options our brain can come up with. So how do you get your brain thinking about more possibilities? You get your brain feeling safe and happy. When we're toward fight or flight, our brain's figuratively shrinking. When we're happy and feeling safe, our uniquely human layers of neocortex come online. Some of our best brain real estate, our prefrontal cortex, loosely speaking, right behind our forehead, comes online so we can prioritize better, make better decisions, connect better with other people, think more creatively, focus better. All these benefits come when we choose more happiness at work.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that because being happy, I'm a naturally positive person, so that really makes me
Yeah,
happy. I mean, that's really exceptional. I love that that can happen and that scientifically that's true. So hence why we should want to hire happier people, right?
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Now, there's a catch-22 there where one of the only things that most of us overestimate the impact of events on our lives. So something good or bad happens, we think, oh, this is going to be a huge impact. It's not as much as we think, what doesn't last very long. One of the only things that has a really lasting effect on happiness is losing a job and not getting a new one. So there's a little bit of a catch-22 there where somebody might be unhappy because they don't have the job. And if you hire them, they'll be happy and they'll be a great worker. But yes, fundamentally speaking, you are correct, Phil. And you said you're a happy guy. I know that to be true. Science says there's a strong genetic component on happiness. So very, very roughly, about half of the difference between one person's happiness and another person's happiness is due to genetic factors. Some of us are born looking at the glass half full, some looking at the glass half empty. So there are genetic factors here that we cannot control. But there are lots of choices we can make. And some of your listeners and watchers might be familiar with epigenetics. Our genes are not a life sentence. How our genes are expressed and come to life in us can be affected by circumstances and the choices we make. So some people are blessed with happier genes. All of us have the ability to rewire our brains and be happier brains. So your gratitude, you said you've been doing the gratitude every day for 9 months. You have rewired your brain to be a more grateful brain. It's called neuroplasticity. Neuroscientists say that the neurons that fire together wire together. And it's really the scientific evidence for the growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about. So we can see your brain change its structure in under a month. If we lie you down in a functional MRI scan before and after a month of some repetitive intense activity, we'll see the structure of your brain change. That neuroplasticity means that's just the way I am is a cop-out. That's the way you are so far. That's just the way she is. Well, that's the way she is so far. And big changes don't come to the brain with a snap of the fingers. But if we put some intention and some work behind it and make the right choices, we can rewire our brains to be happier, more productive, and successful brains.
Wow. That is so encouraging, Scott, and so wonderful that we have a choice. We
Isn't
have the
it?
power. That's awesome, man. That's the best news I've heard in a long time. And when I think about this, right, that means that right now we are about 3 weeks into some of this insanity. We can choose to see this as a blessing, or we can choose to see this as a tragedy. Now, granted, there's going to be some crap that happens, but we still have opportunity here. So, Scott, if we're going to get started on this, how do we get started in this happiness, gratitude, choosing some play type mentality so that we can move forward and be even more productive?
Yeah, great question. At a really intense time, Phil. So I just want to acknowledge, look, as the happiness guy, some people are like, don't tell me to be happy during a world crisis and a pandemic. Like, I get it. However you're feeling right now is totally fine. And there's a wide range of reactions out there, right? So again, a core message to my work is this is not about being blissed out all the time. In fact, the research shows that those who report they are about an 8 out of 10 happy, or for those who like visuals, about as happy as Mona Lisa, who according to the University of Amsterdam is 83% happy. Those who are about as happy as Mona Lisa, about an 8 out of 10, are healthiest, most creative, most resilient, live the longest. So it's not 10 out of 10 happiness we're going for. It's about 8 out of 10 happy. So, and look, a bunch of people may be a lot lower than 8 out of 10 happy right now. There's some heavy, hard stuff going on in the world. So what do, right? We start by acknowledging where we are. Psychologists use this phrase, name it to tame it. By labeling an emotion, you seem to get a better handle on it. trying to suppress our negative emotion is foolish. It doesn't work. But labeling them and then seeing if you can reappraise to find a more positive outlook, that does work according to the research. So step one, don't deny the hard stuff going on in the world right now, and don't deny the hard feelings going on inside yourself, right? A lot of us are feeling anxiety and grief and loss and fear, and great, name it to tame it. Be real about all of that. And then see if you can start to find some silver linings. My blessings include this messy house that I'm in, the 2 kids whose stuff is up on the walls behind me, my lovely wife, and I will play games with those kids later today. We're all healthy right now, and we're alive, right? I mean, look, I wrote a ebook on gratitude, and by the way, if people want more details on the science of gratitude, it's free on my site, happybrainscience.com. We have a happiness starter kit that includes the free ebook on gratitude and some other free resources. So look, Phil, in all candor, I wrote this book on gratitude, short little ebook, practical ebook on gratitude. And then because I do Happy Brain Science, people send me these things via email, right? So somebody sent me an interview with 2 scientists about gratitude. And I'm not proud of this, Phil, but I thought, I've written a book on gratitude. I don't need to know anything else about gratitude, okay? But all right, my friend sent it to me. I'll check it out. So I go and I read this article, and the interviewer says, what do people get wrong about gratitude? And one of the scientists say, they think it has to be big things like family and friends and my health. And sometimes it can be little things like maple syrup or pumpkin pie or my goldfish. And the other scientist jumps in and says, or being alive. Do you realize the odds against your existence are astronomical? Like, not only did your parents survive long enough to have you, but every generation of your ancestors survived long enough to pass on their genes. The odds against that are enormous. So just the fact that you're alive is something to be grateful for. So look, the only thing I want to add before I let this topic of gratitude go is the science of happiness is typically done on neurotypical adults, meaning average adults who are not suffering from depression. Generally speaking, the stuff that the science of happiness finds will help anyone be happier, but be careful if you're actually depressed. And to be crystal clear, I am not your mental health provider, but the science says those who are depressed, if you ask people who are depressed to come up with 3 things they're grateful for every day, it can actually backfire. Because they're depressed, it's hard for them to come up with things they're grateful for. So that is a segue to choose happiness in a way that works for you. For some people, it's gratitude. For other people, it's exercise. For other people, it's immersing deeply in something challenging but possible. For others, it's focusing on human connection and relationships. Find your own path. Science can guide us to choices that are more likely to work for us.
Beautiful. I think that's a great way to end this here, Scott. We need to talk more, though, about your book, man. All about all work and some play. Let's schedule some more time that we can do that, because I think that's the perfect wrap up for gratitude and happiness, choosing happiness and having a bunch more. But folks, if you want to get that all work and some play right now to future-proof your career through games on Amazon, pick it up. Check it out there, but get to know more from Scott. Scott's fantastic. He's got a lot of great stuff. happybrainscience.com is his website. He's in Portland, Oregon, and you will be back, my friend. We're going to talk again soon. This was awesome.
Phil, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. It's great to get to talk with you. It's great to share with your listeners, and I look forward to the next time, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so much.